What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie. I'm a complete mess today. I'm wheezing because of the windstorm that we're currently in the midst of, the dust storm out there. And I got a stick in my eye that I've washed, I've rinsed. I can't get it out. So I'm a little bit irritated, but I want to do this because this is something that's positive that I can say really good things about. Continuing my deep dive into Neil Young's studio albums, his 19th, released in 1989, Freedom. The last album of the studio stuff for him in the 80s, I think probably the last album altogether in the 80s. I don't think he dropped anything special in the last 2 months of this year. We saw rockabilly, we saw pure country, we saw synth/vocoder music, we saw blues with a big horn section, we saw really bad radio drums on purpose for that big radio sound. We saw just a half throwaway album early on, and we end with what I'm going to argue is utter brilliance. We end with essentially something that is like a really fine, like whiskey or bourbon, something that like maybe sometimes you just want to take a shot. Rockin' in the Free World on Broadway, maybe even Don't Cry a little bit. Maybe sometimes you just want to slowly sip it, but contemplate it and enjoy it and like let it savor like A Crime in the City and El Dorado, a Someday even. And maybe some days you're about to go to sleep. You need a couple sips to let you just got to savor it before your bedtime. Hanging on a Limb, Ways of Love, Too Far Gone. It's just a perfect album. And I think the whiskey analogy or bourbon analogy is comparable because some of these songs have been around since the 70s. Too Far Gone, part of the 76, he was playing that a lot acoustically in 76. Ways of Love popped up in Comes a Time. Some of this stuff popped up earlier in the 80s. On Broadway, a cover song that works, that's brilliant. Genius album. I think the title is perfect. Freedom. Neil went through this sort of weird patriotic phase early in the 80s. And this is almost like his Bruce Springsteen Born in the USA moment in a weird way. Rockin' in the Free World. Yeah, but are you listening to the lyrics? Born in the USA, you maybe should listen to the lyrics before you use it as your presidential campaign slogan, anthem, whatever. Rockin' in the Free World. It's just weird. On Broadway, you take this classic song about celebrating the lights on Broadway and you end it with like screaming about how you want some crack, like just completely deconstruct and devastate the thing. It's just an awesome album. Just absolutely fantastic. And one of the songs, Wrecking Ball, completely reminds me of a Springsteen song. That line, meet me at the Wrecking Ball, wear something pretty and white. Little piano action reminds me of something maybe you could have heard off like Darkness or The River. Just would have fit perfectly on those albums. But amazing album. It's about an hour long, 12 songs. One of the reasons, at least as far as Neil goes, you know it's going to be good is because it opens and closes with the same song. Acoustic Electric. Do you know when else he did that? Tonight's the Night, Rust Never Sleeps. Those are both really, really good albums. This is a really, really good album. Personally, this was the first album I got in anticipation of the new Neil Young album coming out. I had Decade. My stepdad had like all the early stuff, so I knew the early stuff. But I think Decade might have been the only one I actually went out and purchased on my own, other than the stuff I listened to my stepdad's vinyl collection. I was in college. I was a sophomore. Probably bought this the day, if not the week it came out. This was the first time I was genuinely thrilled for a Neil release. Listened to it a lot, fell in love with it, grow to love it even more over the years. It also has lots of horns on it and saxophone, and it's used really, really well. Not something common to the Neil Young discography. Ben Keith is on saxophone. Not only is he on pedal steel and still doing his amazing pedal steel stuff, apparently the guy can also play saxophone. Frank is on guitar also. Rick Rosas on bass. Chad Cromwell on drums. Neil Young, of course. Plus we got some awesome backing vocals. Hanging on a Limb and The Ways of Love. Linda Ronstadt singing on that. And that's just, you can never have too much Linda Ronstadt. But what do we get on this album other than just absolute awesomeness? Opens up with a live acoustic version of Rockin' in the Free World. Another Zappa connection because this is from Jones Beach. I think the majority of, or at least maybe half of, Does Humor Belong in Music, I'm pretty sure is from Jones Beach. So, I mean, a lot of the venues, live stuff is the same, but we're making connections. Opening track, and then that's almost like just like a pre-credit like little scene, because then we get Crime in the City, parentheses 60 to 0, part 1. I don't even know how to describe this song. It's like a little movie. It's cinematic, pop, folk, prog, acoustic rock with incredible storytelling lyrics, personal character-driven lyrics, these really interesting, slightly proggy, slightly weird musical interludes that have horns in them. It's got great energy. It's like 9 minutes long, but it never feels old. It's an absolute cool, unique, nothing. I don't think there's anything like this in the Neil catalog. It's like a movie. Like you could imagine the video for this playing out in your head. Like I'm wondering, this is the late 80s. MTV was still, I think, showing music videos at this point. If in Neil's head there was like a thriller type mini movie possibly for this, because this just feels so cinematic and perfect and important, and the storytelling is great, and it's just a magical song. That's followed with Don't Cry, one of several songs in here which just has these random bursts of noise. And I've always thought that this was called Freedom, right? I mean, he's a Canadian living in America. We know he had this patriotic phase. We got Rockin' in the Free World as 2 tracks. I always thought maybe those bursts of noise, even though they fit in the context of songs, were just like kind of tied back to the bombs and the burst of noise from Life that he was using there, that live/studio album that he released. And it almost felt like these are just like, if you're dealing with America, there's going to be random explosions at times as we bomb other countries. And it just felt like there's this, it's sort of representing some sort of aggression that he's trying to like, big picture aggression. Anyways, Don't Cry. Amazing bass playing, amazing vocal by Neil. Just this really cool sort of laid back rock vibe that just has these really loud, dramatic, aggressive spurts of noisy solo guitar energy that's just really cool and really out of nowhere, but just, it absolutely works. It's absolutely fantastic. Hanging on a Limb, very calm, some great vocals. Linda's on this one, nice acoustic guitar, really nice, gentler track, works perfectly in the sort of sequencing of the album. And then we get another just cinematic masterpiece. One of the great failings, and there's still a chance because he's going to make one more movie. To me, this sounds like a song that you would find in a Quentin Tarantino movie. The song's El Dorado. Starts off with this great sort of like Spanish movie gunfight type, things are going down type guitar solo lick, like says, and we just get into this groove, and you can smell the dust. It's almost like a Hemingway novel, like we're in Spain or maybe we're in Mexico, we're about outside of a bull ring, things are happening. And it just has the energy of a song that Quentin Tarantino would have used in like that final scene in Kill Bill 1. The one, not to give anything away, but the one where Uma goes against Lucy Liu out in the snow. Yes, the song Quentin used was great, but as they walked out, if all of a sudden you have that, you just know, oh, stuff's going down here, man. This is going to be good. But it's just a cinematic little masterpiece. Just an absolutely fantastic song. Just absolutely amazing. It sounds like it is a movie soundtrack. The Ways of Love, this is from the Comes a Time era. Really nice, kind of slight country flavor, softer ballad. It works because it's surrounded by El Dorado and Someday is just perfect. This really nice piano, acoustic guitar opening, absolutely beautiful melody. Another one that sort of has this narrative, character-driven lyrics. Has this like kind of cheesy background vocals at one point. I think at some point we talk about Men Working or something like that. And it's like, whoo, ha, like this chain gang type sing along in the back. Some horns come in at one point in the end. 5.5 minutes, takes its time to develop all these great little snapshots of people in these little lyrical pockets. Just a perfect song. And just that, the piano intro, just this like little cascading thing that's just beautiful and melodic and gets right there. Beautiful. And it's needed because after Someday, we drop an On Broadway. The cover of the classic the lights so bright on Broadway, Genesis connection right there. And it's just a loud, it sounds like Crazy Horse. This sounds like Crazy Horse is doing it. That's not who the rhythm section is. It's loud. It's aggressive. Neil starts yelling about wanting some crack at the end. It seems all about disillusionment and the failure of like whatever Broadway was offering people back in the day when the song was written. Just, yeah, the lights. Yeah. Broadway wasn't in good shape back then. This was before it got Disneyfied. Times Square was a mess. This is like capturing that darkness, that falling apart of this part of the American dream. It's beautiful. And I think it's perfect where it is, almost smack dab in the middle of the album, a little towards the back half. Wrecking Ball, really nice piano ballad. Reminds me of Springsteen. Absolutely love the meet me at the wrecking ball. Wear something pretty and white. That's not the melody. I'm not good with melodies. Just absolutely beautiful. Really love it. No More. Probably the most mid-tempo, middle of the road, like pop rock vibe on here. Has some really cool like guitar energy that runs through it. It's got this neat sort of start and stop chorus that's kind of cool. And throughout the whole thing, there's just some really nice kind of squiggly, weird squiggly little Neil guitar throughout there that's just kind of noisy and kind of burning up, but just kind of short and intense. Really good song. Yeah, just fantastic. Great. It's got a sort of a new wave type vibe to it, but neat little song. Then we get Too Far Gone, which first debuted way back in 76. I'm going to talk about I've already talked about many of the releases it's been on. I'm going to talk about another one in a couple of days. Songs for Judy. It's the opening musical track on that. It's just great to finally hear this. It's got some nice mandolin in there. Really nice. Great song. Sounds beautiful. And then we close off the whole album with the electric version of Rockin' in the Free World, which some great lyrics. Neil goes crazy. It's one of those songs where I'm like, Rockin' in the Free World. And like, when I originally went back and listened to this album, I had ranked all these albums prior to doing this whole project. So I have like this fake mock list. And then I've been moving stuff around as I've been re-listening to it. I moved this one up because I had Rockin' in the Free World as a song I'd heard Pearl Jam do it so many times. Neil's always doing it for whatever he's doing. But then when I listen to it here, I'm like, no, this is good. It's a great ending song. I love the guitar energy at the end. He's absolutely bringing it. This is like the Neil sound. And I ended up moving the entire album up because of it. But yeah, I really, really like this album. It's a really good album. It's absolutely fantastic. To 2 decades on, 2+ decades on to his career, to drop something that is this good, amazing. I ranked the songs, and then I'm going to show you where I rank the albums, and we're gonna hold off on that album ranking for a bit for a reason. This is where I rank the songs right there. Crime in the City, El Dorado, just perfect little mini movies. Someday, Don't Cry. Someday, just that piano melody is perfect. Don't Cry, those big bombastic things. On Broadway, just the whole vibe. I love Wrecking Ball. Rockin' in the Free World, I thought was going to be at the bottom. I realized I like that song much more. And then we got some of the slower stuff, Too Far Gone, the nice pop rocky No More, Hang In the Ways. And I just don't like the opening acoustic version of Rockin' in the Free World. I don't think it's needed. I don't think Crime in the City is a good opener. Not sure what is a good opener. But Rockin' in the Free World I don't think is needed. It's the one thing I'm like, it's harmless though. That's where I would rank the songs. I said when I started this that the one album I know is going to be ranked much lower than any other list I've ever seen is After the Gold Rush. And I did say it was going to be in the top 10. I was pretty confident of that. So let me show you what the top 26 through 12. That's the bottom. Freedom's not in there. And if you notice, neither is After the Gold Rush. So it's at least in the top 11. That's where that looks like. I have videos for all that stuff. The top 11, however, now officially looks like this. I have Freedom at number 7. I went song through song for Comes a Time, Harvest, After the Gold Rush. Each of those have songs which I think are maybe not bad. Don't think any of them have bad songs. Probably the worst song in that entire run is A Man Needs a Main off Harvest. I just thought song for song at this point in my life, Freedom, maybe because it's the one album, the first album I bought from Neil, so I have that attachment to these songs. I just would, song for song, I think I'd rather listen to Freedom. And Crime in the City, El Dorado, Someday, Don't Cry, those are just, even Wrecking Ball to some degree, those are just all such fantastic songs that I just, on Broadway, I just had to drop it here. I had to drop it at number 7 above After the Gold Rush, Harvest Comes a Time. That's me. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours. But After the Gold Rush is still in the top 10. It's still in the top 10. I think it's going to stay there. Really, to be honest, the one album, and I know where it is on the mock-up list, but I'm going to listen to it again and make that decision. It's the next album that's the one that might push it out, and we'll find out a week from now. All right, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do all those things. Let me know your thoughts on this album, all that stuff, and go listen to it if you haven't, because it's genius. Peace. Talk to you later.